Welcome to the PAX podcast. Today we have our guest who's the Senior Demand Generation Manager at Walnut IO. It is Danit Ben-Simon. Thank you for joining us today, Danit.
Happy to be here, Oliver. Thank you for
Well,
inviting me.
absolutely. I was wondering if you could start off by just sharing a little bit about your career and what's led you to your current role at Walnut IO.
Sure. So it wasn't. I wasn't always in high tech.
Okay. Where were you before?
I was starting out in marketing. I'm about 20 years in marketing now, but my first career was alcohol. I was
Okay.
brand manager of Stoli, the vodka.
Yeah.
And it was pretty challenging since I didn't like to drink, but it was a real school for everything marketing related,
Yeah.
Excel spreadsheet pivots, and everything you need to know about performance. It's my first touch in performance. And then afterwards, I went on to become freelance. I started my own LinkedIn company. I
Cool.
managed LinkedIn accounts for B2B startups,
Hmm.
and I decided to do it from California, because why not?
Why not, hey?
Why
Drinking
not?
wine, plenty of sun.
So San Francisco, here I come. I had also a venture that I wanted to pursue related
Mm.
to LinkedIn, and I started to build my own product. And I thought that as the tech hub, I also could get like high accounts, high level accounts, and also promote my venture.
Okay, cool.
So after I've been there a couple of years, and then just moved back home. Family is everything to me.
Of
So I
course.
moved back home, had my little girl, baby girl Emma, and went to become a demand generation manager at K2View, which was more of a enterprise marketing. Their clients are big banks, telecommunication clients.
Yeah.
So that's really important experience I had doing that. I started as account-based marketing
Mm.
and moved on to do other things related to everything related to demand. And fast forward, here we are, and I'm the senior demand generation manager at Walnut IO.
Yeah.
That's a mouthful.
So I'm gonna ask you a really dumb question. What is demand generation? Articulate in your own words. What's involved in that role?
Demand generation is comprised, I think, from 3 levels.
Yeah.
So there's the demand creation,
Hmm.
that if they don't know about your product, you need to educate,
Yeah.
awareness. The other aspect is demand capturing, all the Google search that if people are already looking for your product or similar product. So you have to be in front of them. And then the conversion. So throughout the
Okay.
funnel, how they become from aware to a lead, and then to an SQL, and then to an actual deal.
Yeah. How does that differ from kind of lead generation? How would you explain the differences between demand generation, lead generation to somebody?
Well, that's a fun question because I used to do lead generation on
Cool.
LinkedIn. And
Yeah.
it was automated, like machine automated bot sending out messages about a service product, and let's have a 30 minutes
Chat. Is that
or
one of
just
those
for,
people? Oh no.
yeah. So that's just lead generation, bringing in the leads, and not much to it. So I would say that demand covers, first of all, it's widespread, so you have a lot more channels that
Mm.
you need to cover in order to reach out to your target audience, especially in the digital age. So many messages everyone is getting, so of course multi-channel, and also understanding where your customer is at the funnel and what's their journey. So not only getting the lead, but understanding what makes them a customer. And
Yeah.
it's really wide. So if lead generation, I would say it's just the capturing
Okay.
of demand.
So within demand generation as a field, how have you seen that evolve over the last few years? Have there been any kind of technological advances that have changed the landscape of how you approach demand generation?
Well, yes, because there's a lot of companies that struggle with maximum reach, and they
Okay.
are struggling to reach our target audience that is not in Google search, for example, and they're not even aware of your product, but they are out there. So I've seen a lot of platform that claim they have the data on your TAM, right, on your
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
possible market. If it's intent vendors, they said that maybe they have their own network, or maybe they have a way to see if your customers, your prospect, are searching for a solution. I've uh, I've tested many of those vendors and those solutions, and it's not you can't say it doesn't work or it does work, but you have to be really careful in what actual vendor, if it's the right fit, because us as marketers, we see a shiny new tool and it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's get it, and then we'll break the head like, what are we going to do with it?
It's a temptation, I guess, of seeing it as a silver bullet, and it sounds to me like there is no silver bullet out there that's going to suddenly give you the exact insight you need into your TAM that will help you to deliver kind of the demand generation strategy you really want to achieve.
Yeah, I would say definitely start with the data that you have in-house. So what in the current funnel is broken? What can you improve? What can you do to improve your conversion
Yeah.
rate? What is the biggest drop? That I would start there as the demand generation, without doing a lot of changes in big budget, or buy a big spending tool. So that's the first thing. Really understand, like, if people are becoming MQLs and not SQLs, what's the drop there? Is it the sequence? Is it like maybe the different ICP? So very important to get that right
Yeah.
and get that to a certain benchmark that you're happy with. And then you can bring more leads, and then you can expand to other platforms like intent platform, which
Yeah.
has merit, but it depends exactly who your customers are. And I'm an advocate for first party data. What do you already know
And
about
building
it?
campaigns on there. So let's pick up on that theme. So it'd be great to understand what that process looks like in terms of planning and executing a successful demand generation campaign. What's your perspective in terms of what a good planning and execution process looks like?
Well, demand generation campaign is so it's really broad. I can tell you what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis to expand, as I told you, the capturing
Yeah.
and the creation of demand. Of course, there's the Google campaigns, the search campaign, the LinkedIn campaigns, to understand what is the value from each campaign, and to optimize it and to try new things. Google is always coming out with new things, new bidding strategies. It's a world on its own. So you can make a massive difference with trying out crazy new strategies and
Yeah.
testing. So that
What
that's
informs that? So like when you arrive at work on a day, what are the kind of the information or the nodes that you're looking at that inform what kind of LinkedIn advertising campaign or Google search word kind of campaign you're putting together? So you're collaborating with marketing teams. Where does your messages come from? How do you inform what those campaigns are?
Yeah, so right now I'm looking to create a certain kind of campaign on LinkedIn that is an experiment, maybe to target larger companies. So maybe I'll take resources that I already have, like gong, right? The recording that sales has with our prospect, with our ICP, then I know what are their language.
Yeah.
I can use that in LinkedIn ads. I can use that on Google ads. Use their language. And
Yeah.
also, it's important to understand what worked in the past, what didn't work in the past, and what the company aims to do. What's the goal? I mean, if something worked, but at the end of the day, it's not the company mission, then we have to pivot and try out new things. Always based, like go to the basic, go to your customers.
Yeah. Talk to me about how you go about, I guess, conducting the insight process. You spoke about you'd have videos, interviews, I'm assuming, with the customers of your products, and you're watching those to understand what are the language, what are the words they're using.
Yes.
How do you approach that? Because it sounds obvious and straightforward, but it probably isn't in regards to how you're doing it. What are the kind of key phrases you're looking for that help you to inform what kind of campaign messages you're going to launch with?
Well, when they articulate their problem, I
Mm.
know that if we use that as our in our marketing, in our messages, then they'll say, "Okay, you nailed it. Right, that's exactly my problem." So if
Okay.
they repeat it, I know they have multiple users. They have a very complicated process, um, and I think that if something keeps repeating, then I know I
Yeah.
hit gold.
Do you find that the users you're, I guess, creating messaging for resonate more with their problems or with the solution in terms of the language?
Well, in demand generation, everything is it needs to be tested. So
So there's no thick and fast rule.
no, but in general, and that for copywriting, but I would generally go to the more of the pain points. What do
Mm.
they most? What hurts them the most? And relate
Yeah.
to that.
Okay, that's super interesting. What are kind of the common mistakes that you see people make when running kind of demand generation activities and campaigns?
Wow, I can tell you that I made a lot of mistakes.
Okay.
There's many mistakes you can make running ABM campaigns, for example,
Yeah.
targeting companies maybe without understanding why they're the perfect fit. So let's say you want to go for Fortune 500 companies, but then you don't understand what you don't go and do the research.
Yeah.
Maybe they had an M&A, maybe they had like a recent change in technology, and it takes time. It takes time and effort, but this initial research, it's going to save you like a year of work maybe afterwards, and then you'll see what's the perfect fit for you. And that's a question that should be throughout the organization, like what's the perfect fit before you choose the company.
Okay. How have you seen that impact your success rate within campaigns?
That specific it impacted because it was like too broad
Mm.
of a campaign. And then when we started small, just started with the low hanging fruit, people that maybe your competitors are using and they're not happy with them. How do you know it? Maybe you have like research. There's a lot of companies out there that can do competitor research, or you can go just see who follows you on LinkedIn and within your ICP. They know you. See who follows your competitors.
Yeah.
And go hit that. Like, what's their pain point? Why would they move from your competitors to your solution?
Yeah. So it sounds like there's something in there that's even beyond research. It's being far too broad with who you're defining as your ICP. And it sounds like the more narrow and specific you can get, the more success you'll see. Is that a fair characterization?
You have to go narrow, and you have to go at the right place that has high intent. And matches your ICP. So you have to want them.
Yeah.
They have to need you
Yeah.
as well, because there's a lot of prospect knocking on our doors, but
Yeah.
it's not necessarily the right one. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to give up a lot of leads, but eventually they don't convert as well as they might have if the effort went to a different avenue.
Okay. So you're hinting there. So what are the kind of success metrics that you would look at closely in your role? What are the goals or dots you're trying to move?
Yeah, it depends on the goals, on the
Yeah.
company goals, on my goals. So I would always look at revenue just to understand where we're at revenue, at the pipeline, at SQLs. I understand if we are ROI positive with our campaign. And ultimately, the goal is revenue, is pipeline, and it doesn't matter how. And my job is to share, first of all, how to optimize the best way to go about it, like not for MQLs, not care about leads.
Yeah.
But first of all, we're going to be leaders in the market. How are we going to get there, and how are we going to be the most efficient to bring the revenue, the SQLs.
Yeah. Okay. So there's definitely a focus around kind of the efficiency and the return on investment. But like, I suppose you were talking there about it depends on what your goals are. What are the kind of the big and broad goals that you would have been assigned that determine how you approach what success looks like?
Well, it's always customers, right? We want more
Okay.
deals, we want more revenue, we want
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
more money. But at the end of the day, we want to understand which ICP brings us the higher revenue with the lowest amount of of spend or effort.
Mm.
And that's something that requires a lot of analytics, a lot of drilling down to understand it, and it takes time to do it. But it's not that straightforward with a lot of companies. But I think it's worth the time.
Okay. How much of your kind of day to day is spent focused on looking at the analytics side of things?
Wow, it's I would say 90%
90%.
more.
Wow.
Yes, I don't know if that's how I thought I'm of myself. I always thought of myself I was, I got a C minus in math, but I
You know.
ended up loving it. And yeah, that's what I do most of the day. And I think the reason that I love it is because at the end of the day, you can actually bring so much value just by doing some pivots, and it can
Yeah.
change the entire picture. It can change the whole business. Even it can pivot. Like I remember that analyzing the entire pipeline at one point made a pivotal change in the company's whole strategic view,
Oh,
because
wow.
because they saw that a different kind of product is much easier to sell than the
Yeah.
other. So the easier product was in front line, and then they use it to sell the much harder sale.
Yeah. What are your weapons of choice? What are the tools you're using on a day-to-day basis when you're doing the analysis?
I used to have Excel spreadsheet, the all the good in Excel spreadsheet,
Yeah.
but now I use Tableau, which is amazing,
What's
really.
that again? Sorry.
Tableau.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I see every metrics that I need from top of the funnel, all of my campaigns, what their performance through all the way through closed one,
Yeah.
understanding a lot of verticals, like based on company size and everything. So it's so important. I think
Yeah.
I like it.
Is
It's
that giving you everything you need, or is there anything not covered in there that you need other tools to look at?
I can always have more.
Yeah.
There's never enough, graphs for me to view. I want always more and more breakdown by every little item. But for now, it's really good.
If you could wave a magic wand, What's the one piece of data or the analytics tool you would want right now that you don't have?
Ah, wow, the analytics tool that I don't have. Yeah, I think that in the future, uh, a lot of my job would be automated with AI. I'm
Mm.
always looking for a tool that can just I'll upload the Excel spreadsheet from Google, and he'll tell me, you know what, you should stop this campaign, or you should cut this keyword, and then you'll get like 100 more SQLs.
Yeah. How much of the, I guess, how much of your role do you think is kind of algorithmic in regards to you're making decisions and then changing your internal algorithm of which campaigns you stop, which ones you increase the bids on? Is that a real threat in terms of AI potentially replacing aspects of demand generation?
No,
No, that is,
because there's the story of the charts
yeah.
and the story of the business.
Mm.
And sometimes there's a story that leads you to this certain path, and out of context, it's the totally different path than what it should be. So you have to
Okay.
connect the business. You have to know the product. You have to know the salespeople. You have to know everything about your team in order to understand if it makes sense, if the data makes sense. On
Mm.
its own, it doesn't work.
Okay. What advice would you give to, I guess, product managers and marketeers who are new to demand generation?
I say, well, never settle.
Never settle.
Never
Okay.
settle. So
In what context?
every CTR or every cost per click, they have managed be lower. Every SQL, always strive for more.
Mm.
That's my objective. I always can do more. Um, of course, with the support of the business.
Yeah. To what extent do you think that's a mindset? Or to what extent is that something that's innate within somebody, the idea of never standing still and always pushing and striving to improve? Because there might be some individuals where they just don't understand or comprehend that. They just want to achieve the goals that they've been set out to do. And once they've done it, they can coast.
But that's so boring.
I
No, I'm
agree.
just kidding. I'm just kidding because, like, of course, goals are probably you're not gonna achieve all of your goals all the time. But I have like obsession with creating new things and learning new things and testing, and I don't mind if 1 month don't be so obsessed with reaching your goals every month, for example. I'm obsessed about the big picture. So
Yeah,
I strive like not to increase MQLs, for example, but the revenue for what's the vision of the company.
yeah,
You wanna increase the team, hire more people, get more funding. You need more business. So strive always to achieve the company vision, and that I think is the most valuable.
yeah. Well, a lot of the things you've been talking about so far, it sounds like you're doing it kind of on your own. You have insight being given to you. I was wondering if you could expand more about what your dynamic and relationship is with the broader kind of product marketing team. What do your interactions look like? How do they support and enable the work that you do? How do you support and enable the objectives they have? What is that dynamic like?
So the product marketing team is super important for everything, for all the messaging, like the email campaign, the cadence, the Google messages, the LinkedIn messages. So we work together to understand, first of all, what their competitors are doing, and how can we bring something different to the table? What other values are we bringing to our customers? So competitor analysis is very important,
Yeah,
and after that, understanding what is the product, who best it serves, like what's our recipe, and understanding the features, and they know the customer best. So working together is very important in every aspect.
Okay. No, that's great. I mean, you gave the example previously of an instance whereby you understood or found a new use case for a product or identified a new customer segment where the product responded really dynamically. What does that look like when the insight's going the other way, where you're informing the insights to the product managers?
What do you mean when I inform the
Yeah, when you discover something new about how a product resonates with a specific customer type, what does that process of feeding back to the product marketing team look like?
Yeah, that's actually something that is super important, because I manage a lot of traffic
Yeah,
and everything that we want to do different in the messaging. First, we do it in our campaigns, in the landing page, because you get
yeah.
a vast amount of traffic there, and then you do A/B testing to understand if it resonates better. So definitely, whenever a new messaging or a new feature comes out, we create a new landing page to do it, and then test it against the other, and then it's a feedback loop to the marketing if it resonate better or not.
Hmm.
And also you can do it. Email marketing would be, I think, the easiest. Also, just do A/B testing with your
Yeah.
messaging. So we work together on that.
Okay. What are the kind of best practices that you've seen around things like A/B testing in terms of the maximum number of variants that you might work with? What are the kind of best practices you've seen about the right way of experimenting?
I like to do a lot of A/B testing on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I think you should always experiment with multiple variants of copy, of
Mm.
design, of even like the small call to action on the bottom. Like I remember that one time it tested better for our ICP. Get the guide instead of read more.
Okay, and that was more effective.
Yes, yeah, when we tested the exact same ad, just that was the variant that was more effective for that specific time for our ICP, and everything there you can test, but you have to make sure that you can test audiences on LinkedIn. You know, the same campaign, different audiences. You can test different copy, and the difficult thing, in A/B testing is, okay, what now? How can you get really an insight from that? How can you do better? How can you improve?
Yeah,
Because every small change can make a difference, or no. But before you test it, you need to understand to what are my goals, and if I see this one is doing better, what I'm going to do with that? How I'm going to create another variance of that. So don't stop there, just A/B testing
yeah.
one.
It's that
Yeah.
culture of experimentation, never being satisfied with, well, I think this is probably going to be the perfect way of marketing to this audience, because I guess presumably interests and tastes will change. Get the Guide might work well today, but in a month's time, it might be click here to download that's the winning message in terms of generating the highest levels of conversion.
I'm always in favor of trying crazy things. Not always that the companies work for going for it, but I think Walnut will be very open to do it, because they're super creative, and right now, yes, I think 2024 for me is the experiment year,
Tarif,
to
yeah,
end up to end this year with a list of experiment of telling this worked, this didn't, and at the end of the day, seeing how it really moved the needle.
yeah.
All the experiments.
I love that. 2024 is a year of experimentation.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Danit. I really appreciated having an opportunity to learn more about demand generation and your kind of role at Walnut IO. Thank you so much for joining me on the call, and hopefully look forward to speaking again soon.
Yes, thank you, Oliver. Me too. I have a good one.